Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Peterson. I'm on the Wisconsin Rural Partners Board of Directors. I also sit on the committee that has been putting on this 5-week virtual rural summit presentation, and we're in our fifth and final week. It's kind of hard to believe we've gone by with all these sessions in such a quick hurry, but we can't thank everybody enough for their participation in our summit, and also with all these speakers and presenters that we had some unbelievable content. And we were hopefully to do this in person, but because of COVID's issues, we were unable to do it for 2021. But stick around at the end of this session as we'll be giving you an update of what we've got planned for 2022 and also some other programming that we're hopefully to get off the ground later on this summer and fall, thanks to a lot of the input that we've gotten from many of you that have been part of our sessions over the past 4 weeks. And then today for our fifth and final week, which is Rural Development Initiatives and Successes. And what's really kind of interesting and fun about this session is we have our annual Top Rural Development Initiative Awards that we present each year at our summit. And we've recognized some of the top efforts being done collaboratively across the state of Wisconsin. And this segment's going to be unique because we're going back and we're going to visit with some of our past award winners and not only find out about where they've what they've done since they've won the award, but how it's expanded and some of the success stories that they've had that you can take home into your own backyard and hopefully create your own collaborative efforts so you could be a TRDI nominee in the future as we're looking forward to announcing our 2021 Top Rural Development Initiative winners sometime later in 21. But we are hosting this fifth and final session today, and I want to say a big thank you going out to my committee. We spent a lot of time putting this 5-week session together. And thanks to Todd Johnson. Todd's the invisible guy. He's driving the bus for these past 5 weeks. Todd with UW Extension. Also, Rebecca Giroux from WIDA. Rebecca will be one of our moderators today. And of course, Marianne Lippert from Marianne Lippert Consulting LLC. Very instrumental in the broadband. She'll be also doing some moderating in our second hour with a broadband update with Jaron McCallum from Public Service Commission. But thanks again to our committee for all your great work. This has been kind of labor of love of what we put together and have seen the successes we've had. So thanks everybody for all your great work. I want to give you a few housekeeping items. One is we are recording this session. We've had a tremendous amount of people that have gone on our website and have watched our previous sessions, and we thank you for that. This session will be recorded and also be posted on our website at wiruralpartners.org. You just click on the summit page, and not only will you get the video of our presentations today, but also the presentations themselves will be available for download and all the contact information from our speakers and presenters as well, in case you have follow-up questions that you may have. And speaking of questions, we can't stress enough that if you have questions you'd like to ask any of our panelists or any of us on the committee, feel free to do that in the chat room. It's very easy. You just click on where it says chat, and you can send your question to everyone. You can send it directly. I'd say if you're asking questions about a session presentation, just send to everyone, and we'll try to get to those questions with our moderators. If for some reason we don't get through all the questions and get them answered today, we'll definitely post them on our website. So we'll give you the frequently asked questions that we didn't get to today. But so far for the past 4 weeks, we've done a pretty good job keeping up with our questions that we have. Also, make sure that you mute your sound, and we ask that you also darken your screen unless you're a presenter. It makes it easier and cleaner for us to spend time watching the presentations, because there will be some PowerPoint presentations you'll be seeing as well. Do want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, but first of all to our partners. And we urge you to become a value partner of Wisconsin Rural Partners. This isn't a sponsorship of our organization. It's a true partnership where we will assist, support, share your benefits, your resources, your services, and it's a win-win for both as we promote you as much as you promote us, and it really helps with our joint efforts of not duplicating efforts when we're trying to build our rural communities and our rural areas throughout the state of Wisconsin. Just to let you know, we went over 200 attendees for this 5-week summit, and we are at 201, and proud to say we're from 81 different communities across the state of Wisconsin, so we've really got a nice cross-section of everybody from around the state, and that's why we wanted to make sure this summit touched every corner of the state and not just certain regions. So thank you all for attending. This has been great. Also want to remind you too about our Road to Rural Recovery. This is located on our Rural Partners website. It's a one-stop shop directory with 36 different agencies, companies, resources, programs, all that have come together or have been created or culminated from the COVID pandemic. And it's a one-stop shop. So instead of Google searching and trying to find all the different resources, we've got it all under one window in our website at the Road to Rural Recovery. Want to say a special condolences to a good friend of many of ours. Southwest ITBAC has been a silver sponsor of our summit this year, and sad to say we said goodbye to the chairperson for Southwest ITBAC on Sunday. Many of you knew Sharon Folsey. She was the current chair of Southwest ITBAC. She lost her battle with cancer, and tremendous loss for a lot of us. She was a lot more than just the leader of Southwest ITBAC. Governor Tommy Thompson back in 1988 appointed her to the Governor's Council on Tourism. She later then rose into that department as the Heritage Tourism Coordinator. Spent a lot of work traveling around the state of Wisconsin, but also networking with other states to build our heritage tourism industry. She left the state government position and became the executive director of the Sparta Area Chamber of Commerce for 10 years and implemented a lot of new programs there and really put the chamber on the map. She was a chairperson of the Western Wisconsin Workforce Development Board. She was currently serving her second term on the Monroe County Board of Supervisors, sitting on the Mississippi River Regional Planning Commission, along with serving on many other committees. She was also the District 2 Director and Secretary for the Wisconsin Towns Association. She served on the Wisconsin Counties Association Board of Directors and also Cooley Cap. And while there were many, many more committees and organizations she was involved with, many more than I can name right now. But please remember Sharon's family during this time. And we really want to thank Sharon for dedicating her life's work for the state of Wisconsin. She's going to be missed by many. Right now, I'd like to welcome some special guests that are joining us today. The leader of our Wisconsin Rural Partners Board of Directors is with us, and with a greeting, I'm going to pass it on to Sandy Decker. Sandy?
Thank you, Steve. Welcome to the final session of our Rural Summit. Wisconsin Rural Partners thanks the many organizations and individuals making this summit possible. First of all, our Summit Planning Committee has spent countless hours organizing and coordinating this event. UW Extension has graciously served as our virtual host for the weekly series. Our partners and sponsors have greatly supported our efforts. Our speakers have provided many ideas and much information about rural initiatives and issues impacting rural areas. Thank you all. Finally, thank you for your attendance. We all must work together to support and strengthen prosperity in rural Wisconsin. It is the bedrock in our state. Steve?
Thanks a lot, Sandy. And this has been a lot of fun to get the word out about what Rural Partners does. And Sandy's leadership as a board president, along with our board, I know we are really thankful for everybody's support. And we are in this all together, as you said, for growing our rural areas throughout the state of Wisconsin. So thanks, Sandy. We have a couple of gold sponsors that we'd like to recognize, and not just for what they've done for this year's summit, but also they were gracious enough to be gold sponsors for our 2020 summit that we were unable to have, but they stayed with us, and we can't thank them enough because their financial support allows us to do a lot of things with this summit to make it the best it can be for all of you that are attending. Right now, I'd like to introduce Ingrid from Wisconsin SMP. She is the Wisconsin Senior Medicare Patrol Project Manager. Ingrid?
Thanks, Steve, and thanks to everyone again. We've certainly been pleased to be a part of this Wisconsin Rural Partners Virtual Summit. Kudos to the organizing team that put together a great format of presentations. And we at the Wisconsin Senior Medicare Patrol are truly proud to be a part of this and to be actively engaged with Wisconsin Rural Partners as we strive to reach as many folks who are Medicare beneficiaries across Wisconsin, but most specifically in the rural parts of Wisconsin, with our important education message about how folks can prevent, detect, and report healthcare fraud, errors, and abuse. So we appreciate this opportunity. We look forward to future opportunities, and I hope everyone enjoys this afternoon's summit. Thanks, Steve.
Yep, thanks a lot, Ingrid, and all the great work that SMP does. Is we're all going to be seniors at some point, and it's nice to know that you've got our back with a lot of great resources that we can use to keep us safe. So thank you, Ingrid. I want to recognize also Mid-State Technical College. Heather has joined us many times before. I think she almost could be one of our panelists because she was pretty involved with Deb Brown during her sessions. But I want to introduce Heather. She's the manager of continuing education at Mid-States Technical College. Another one of our great gold sponsors. Heather?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I really personally have enjoyed attending this summit, and Midstate is very proud to be a sponsor of this event. We have campuses in Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, Marshfield, and Adams. So in a number of the rural communities in central Wisconsin, we provide academic programming, custom training for businesses, as well as lifelong learning, my area of passion. During June, we're slowing down a little bit, focusing more on some very specific professional development opportunities for our law enforcement workforce, but we also still have opportunities for individuals in the community. We're continuing our partnership with the American Smithsonian Art Museum to bring, kind of the big city and the museums that have been closed into the rural areas of Wisconsin. We'll be talking about American history through artwork, and we'll be learning about tea. We'll have opportunities coming up this summer for manufacturing camps that will actually be held back on our campuses again this year. And so we really want to be that educational partner of first choice for all of our communities. And we think it's truly important to have all of these educational opportunities, and very similar to what Wisconsin Rural Partners are bringing into our communities now. So we're very proud to be a sponsor, Steve, and hope everyone enjoys this final session.
Thanks a lot, Heather. Great to see Mid-State Technical College and involved that you are, not just with the students, but also with the communities. I think that's a real strong point that you should be very proud of. So thank you for being a gold sponsor for us. We're going to move into our first hour of sessions of speakers. Really excited to hear what our former Rural Development Initiative winners have done and how things have expanded since they won their award. And it's my pleasure right now to introduce my partner in crime on the committee, but also she's going to be the moderator for this segment from the Wisconsin Housing Economic Development Authority. Please welcome Rebecca Giroux. Rebecca?
Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you to all participants and presenters for joining us today. Just a few housekeeping items today. During these presentations, we will be utilizing the chat function, so you are able to put questions in the chat during the presentations, and we will have a short time after each presenter to ask a few questions. As Steve mentioned, if we don't get to all of the questions, presenters will be chatting their contact information for a follow-up, as well as, kind of creating a FAQ sheet for those questions that don't get answered today. Introductions today will be brief, so full speaker bios can be found on our WRP website. We will put that link in the chat. So this first hour, like Steve said, we'll be featuring 3 recent Top Rural Development Initiative Awards. From here on out, I'll refer to it as TRDI recipients. So today we have Wiesen, Town of Bailey's Harbor, and the Grantsburg Revitalization Operation. All 3 of them will be presenting the projects today. So we're going to just get into it. So up first, we have Wiesen. So Wiesen stands for Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network. They are a Wisconsin Rural Partners 2020 TRDI Initiative Award recipient. So a little bit about this project. Kickapoo Conversations launched Wiesen with childcare providers in January of 2019. And the goal was to reduce program closure and turnover during a time of unprecedented decline in regulated childcare programs. Presenting today, we would like to welcome Kelly Matthews and Paula Drew, directors of Wiesen. So I will turn it over to Kelly and Paula. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. Our session is about creating infrastructure through a shared services network for the childcare sector. in rural Wisconsin. Let's see, here we go. I'm here with my colleague, Kelly Matthews. We haven't seen each other in a little while because Kelly's been on vacation, so I'm really excited to see her again. Together, we co-direct the Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network, or WESN. Kelly and I have both.
Oh. Paula, you muted yourself. Come
Yeah,
back.
sorry about that. I really didn't try to do that.
That was me by accident, sorry.
Oh,
You're good.
Todd.
You're good.
Okay, so Kelly and I co-direct the Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network, WESN. We have both spent the majority of our professional careers working in early care and education. We both have extensive experience in owning and operating childcare programs ourselves. Here we go. Prior to COVID-19, childcare was in crisis. In Wisconsin, over 50% of residents were living in what's called childcare deserts. In rural Wisconsin, this number jumped to 80%. What that means is that there were more than 3 children for every 1 childcare slot available in a given county. We believe that in order to have strong, vibrant communities and local economies throughout the state, our childcare infrastructure must be a priority. And indeed, lack of dependable childcare options keeps parents, especially mothers, from working. 2/3 of mothers served as primary or co-breadwinners before the pandemic, and disproportionately experienced job disruptions because of childcare challenges. The Pew Research Center reported that during the pandemic, mothers reported being able to work less, were passed over for promotions, and in some instances had to leave the workforce altogether. As the state looks to recover from the pandemic and the recession, parents require affordable and accessible childcare to participate in the workforce. And we know in our rural communities, parents often have to utilize multiple childcare options within a given week just to meet their employment commitments, which is stressful for them and also unsettling for children. We also know that employers struggle to attract and retain parents of young children due to lack of childcare availability in their region. We also know that the issues of this sector are complex. The childcare sector struggles due to razor-thin margins that lead to low wages and significant turnover and complex burden of the work. Compounding these issues is the fact that though providers often hold deep wisdom and skill in terms of caring for and educating young children, they often struggle with maintaining the business and administrative side of running a childcare program. So in developing our shared services intervention, we aim to support the business services, business practices, and ease the staffing burdens. And we saw input from the providers we were hoping to serve. The suite of services that we developed are sort of interlocking strategies that we together using our own experience from being in the field and in speaking to others. And this is what we offer. So we start off with technology. And I'm so glad that we started with technology because our providers were able to quickly pivot during the pandemic and meet and continue to meet with their coaches and mentors via technology. So what this means is for some people, we started by giving them an actual laptop and an internet hotspot and technical assistance around how to use that piece of equipment to manage their business. For other folks, they already had computers and may or may not had internet, but weren't using technology to really help alleviate some of the stressors of running their business. So we worked with them around software that is specifically developed for childcare programs to automate things such as billing and enrollment, and to take human error out of the equation in terms of managing files, and also in just terms of efficiencies. Pairing that, each program gets a coach that works with them one-on-one around tailored business practices. And so working with technology and with their coach, we really support that administrative struggle that I mentioned earlier. Next, we have something called the Relief Squad, which is a pool of substitute teachers, which we hire. We pay a living wage with benefits, and we train them, and they work across the network. This is by far our most prized part of our service in terms of what providers really wanted and told us they wanted from the beginning. Kelly always laughs, but I never wanted to do this part because it is really complicated to hire substitute teachers and manage the bookings. But we did it, and honestly, it's been a huge game changer in terms of keeping programs open and also developing trust with these individual childcare providers that we were seeking to work with. We also do facilitate bulk buying and local nutritious food acquisition through farm to ECE efforts. In every community that looks different, but in Vernon and Monroe and all of our rural counties that Kelly will talk to you about in a minute, we're working to supply weekly or bi-weekly food boxes to programs from local farms in the community, and following those up with recipes and other types of tools to use to process those foods. We also do a fair amount of professional development during the pandemic that was very much tailored and related to getting relief funding, either from local communities, from the state, or from the federal government. And our programs have told us themselves that they would likely not have been able to get some of those resources without our assistance. Lastly, we do a lot of just plain language resource sharing. So we read things from the state, from the feds, and we put it back out to our programs in easy to understand formats. So that's a little bit about the services we have devised as part of our program. And now Kelly's going to share our history and how we got started.
Thanks, Paula. So this is a map of our current cohorts across the state, but the one we started with is, and they are in numerical order, number 1 in Vernon and Monroe County. As our introduction stated, we started in very rural western Wisconsin. In 2019, we had 2 programs sign up. We had one family childcare program and one center-based program. From that, we've grown to over a dozen programs in Vernon and Monroe, and continued to grow this seed of a project across the state. We now currently serve over 135 programs with additional plans to continue expansion into additional rural communities and supporting some of the areas we already are in. So we started in Vernon and Monroe. After that, we received, to fund that, we received a statewide systems change grant to fund that work to launch. We then moved to Dane County, where we placed second in a national competition, and shared services was one of the 4 interlocking strategies that was part of that proposal. We received an additional grant in Milwaukee to launch with programs there. And then during the pandemic, we doubled in size and opened cohort number 4, which is in the Southwest. And that is 6 different counties. And then after that, in tandem with that, we also received a subcontract to run a shared services network in Jackson County. So it has been a wild ride since 2019. We are very proud of the work we've done in rural communities and the providers that we've supported. As Paula mentioned, Relief Squad was one of the number 1 things that providers asked for as we were just starting out. This project has received national technical assistance from before we went live with programs to help us build this smartly and build it well. And I do have to admit, we did not take the advice of our technical assistance person at this stage. And they said, whatever you do, don't start with that. It's too hard. Pick low-lying fruit, like take the easy thing, take an easy win. And what our providers told us in Monroe and Vernon was that they needed this. And so that's what we started with. And it made all the difference in the world for them to say, oh my gosh, like you actually listened to us. You actually got us the thing that we needed that would actually make a difference in our day-to-day life. Part of why we started with this was because we had heard a story from that community where a family childcare provider had called in sick and could not care for the children in her care, and she happened to care for a number of teachers in a school district. The school district could not get enough subs in and literally had to close the district for the day. And when you think about the cost, both in time of learning and economic cost, and the scramble for parents to then have to find care, and the impact on the employers, that is a huge loss for that day. So we knew that helping keep programs open in the day-to-day would be a really important factor. An additional benefit that we've been able to bring to the Monroe County area is also a specialized farm to ECE program that I'm really excited about, where they receive deliveries and programs like Paula described. And so the shared service network functions both at the very local level, but then because of our breadth, we can bring services that have sort of a statewide impact. When someone says we want to help, we can then help be that funnel to make sure that the support actually gets to the childcare programs. So how these work is that we get invited into a community. As the person who introduced us stated, like Kickapoo Conversations was how this whole thing launched. They had identified childcare as one of the main factors in what would create the sort of best life for their grandkids. Like if that was in place, that would make a huge difference for them. And so the cool thing is that they invited us, we listened, and we brought our childcare expertise to the table and said, okay, so here's a model. It's happening in other places in the country. Wisconsin doesn't really have anything like this. Will you join us in a joint venture to pilot this and kick it off in rural Wisconsin and see the impact it makes? And the stories have been stunning from the providers' perspectives. We know during COVID, we had a 2% closure rate for permanent closures, which is very low compared to the national average. We know we've made a difference for keeping programs open because programs have told us, like, we've been able to keep a classroom open because Relief Squad was there. We are able to stay open because we understood the funding guidelines and all of this for the Paycheck Protection Program and all of these really hard things that we would never have time to do on our own because we're too busy taking care of the kids. You all sift through all of that, get us what we need to know, and then we can just do it. So it's been very remarkable to hear the interactions between our coaches and the programs on the ground about how this has grown in support. Paul, were there any additional pieces that you wanted to share on this part?
I just will mention really quick, because I think we're getting close to time, that our work now seems to be moving towards helping new startup businesses. Kelly and I have developed a foundational business training program called Build It Strong, and we are targeting folks who are really interested in getting into the field, but need a lot of support in order to do that right and to be stable in the long run. So that is sort of an up and coming big part of our work that we're excited to be expanding.
And a fun note, that was actually piloted in Greene County, which was one of our rural communities that we serve. So our funding, just to give you a quick glance at that, this list has been sort of all over the place as far as which has been our base funding. We wrote a lot of grant proposals early on to figure out how to keep this thing funded, how to bring additional folks to the table. We've had a number of local rural funders that have believed in what we were doing, from Organic Valley, Gunderson Health Systems. Scenic Bluff has donated space when we were first getting started so we could share with providers the survey information that they gave us, telling us what they needed. And so then we knew how to build this to be the thing that would help them. So we actually are in the process of receiving state funding in a pretty significant way for the first time. And it's a very exciting opportunity for us because it will allow us to basically double the size of our network again. And we have some communities identified that we've had these relationships with that have the trusted community partners and have done the work already to build those trusted relationships. And so that's how we operate, is we don't ever come in and do this to someone. It is always an invitation where we're invited to come with and find ways to support the childcare communities in those areas. So we have received state funding. The local philanthropy has been really, really important for that local buy-in and help for those additional regional supports. We receive national dollars, and then also we do some work for fee for service as far as sort of coaching some new programs and additional training and some other things that we can provide. So it has been a wild ride since 2019 and starting, but we are so proud of the work we've done, and we're proud of the providers every single day doing this work to care for Wisconsin's children, because we know without that workforce, there is no Wisconsin workforce. So if you'd like more information, Paula and our emails are right on there. We're happy to follow up with you to answer questions, give more information. And if you have any questions about our project, we'd be happy to hear them.
Thank you so much, Paula and Kelly. Just a great, great program. I think we can all attest that our communities are screaming for childcare. It goes right up there with housing needs and economic development. So this is really great. So we do have one comment is inviting you to Dodge County if you're looking at the chat box. But Kelly, you mentioned that you do need an invitation to kind of come into a community. Can you share if there's any plans to move north of Highway 10 or north of Highway 29?
So early on in our small community conversations, we had some conversations up in the Door County Peninsula area. Those haven't moved forward yet, but I think there's always like this spark of people know we're doing this work, and when sort of the economic development folks get together and the county development and like all those folks say like, yeah, this is the thing we want to get behind. That's when we start having conversations and see if a feasibility study is viable. And then we carry that out and actually connect with the providers themselves to see what they might be interested in and have a sort of system for rolling out if that is something that a community is interested in. And we've had lots of conversations with folks just to give them more information and get those started to see if it's right for them.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Kelly. And Paula did make a comment that you are working with Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation and plan to expand into Dodge County this year. And so that is wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing that. So we have time for, one or two more questions. If anyone has any, please feel free to put them in the chat. We can get to those. And Kelly, Paula, feel free to chat your email addresses into the chat box as well. Oh, thank you. Definitely, and shared the website as well. And just for everybody else's benefit, we will be posting the presentations up on our website as well as a recording of this this segment. So we will have that. And I don't see any other questions coming in. So again, big thanks, Kelly and Paula, for presenting today and sharing the great information that you have. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So our next TRDI presentation is the Town of Bailey's Harbor UW Extension Community Vitality and Placemaking Team awarded the TRDI award in 2017. So this design team process led local Bailey's Harbor residents and business owners to pursue the design team concepts, resulting in a community center and much more. So presenting today is Mariah Good, a design team member and director of Door County Land Use Services. So with that, I will turn it over to Mariah.
All right, let's see if I can successfully share my screen. Can everybody see my slides and hear me?
Can hear you. I cannot see your slides yet.
Oh, all right, let's figure this out. I think this happened last time too.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a minute as I flip through all the slides again. So, all right, now how are we looking?
Very
Can you see slides yet?
Slides, yes, thank you.
All right, it only took 2 tries. So as Rebecca said, and my project feels really tiny compared to the last one, and I'm happy to hear that you've been talking to Door County. I love our child care center where we send our kids. So I am speaking today as a resident of Bailey's Harbor. I do work for the county for the Land Use Services Department, which deals with county planning and zoning, among other things. But in 2015, my town, Bailey's Harbor, was lucky enough to be selected for a UW Extension Community Vitality and Placemaking design team visit, where roughly about 20 people come into the community for 3 days. And it's architects, landscape architects, economists, biologists, artists, photographers, planners, and they meet with as many people as they can. They tour as much as they can, and then they leave the community with ideas about ways to address the issues that the community has indicated are problems or issues for them. So when the design team came to Bailey's Harbor in 2015, they basically said, you guys have great stuff going on, don't mess it up, and we've got ideas that we think will help you not mess it up. We want the community, and they emphasized it should be attractive not just to tourists. We're a very heavily touristed area in northern Door County. And Bailey's Harbor is lucky enough that we've got more protected land than any other town in Door County, thanks to the Bridges Sanctuary in part. But there's also a couple of other large preserves in the town. And our town was already kind of trying to be as ecotourism minded and sustainable and green as possible. And so the design team said, those are the things that you guys really need to enhance as you move forward. So this is a visual. If you've never seen what the design team does when they come to a community, they spend all day on the last day drawing all these different maps of what they think you should emphasize. And again, for Bailey's Harbor, they said you need to make sure that you're actively weaving your natural resources through the community and emphasizing ecotourism. So there's a couple of the posters they did for us. They determined in their minds, and from listening to people, that kind of the north end of our downtown is what we should be focusing on to a large extent. And this is another drawing that they did of their vision of what it could turn into to give us some ideas. Definitely said, you know, you guys are too worried about parking. You need to worry more about parks. You need to improve your pedestrian friendliness, especially in this mid downtown area. And we had asked specifically for some ideas about redeveloping retail and recreation, because in 2015, we had a lot of businesses that were for sale in downtown Bailey's Harbor. So we were pretty worried about what might happen there. This is a photo from 2021 of that same area that you just saw the drawing of, because you're going to hear me mention some of these places throughout. So I happen to live over here. The town hall, the library, and an adjacent park are kind of right in the middle here. The fire station is across the street from that. We've got the town marina. Next to that is a property that's privately owned called Nelson's, which was a general store and some apartments and some storage for the Nelson's business. And then we've got across the street, continuing to circle around, Cornerstone Pub, Lakeshore Adventures, which is a kayak and fishing kind of outdoor adventure company. And then Brand Field, which is owned by the town, which you can kind of see back where it says C-Pub, where you see a driveway going through some green space. So the design team suggested, they heard a lot from people that, you know, we need places to hang out, we need places to do things. And they said, you have this giant town hall that you're not really using to its full capacity. And that should be what you focus on as a community center. You don't need to build anything new. And they also suggested that we buy the property across the street, that the town buy the property across the street, which was adjacent or is adjacent to the fire station, so that we could have expanded areas. There's a photograph of our town hall. It's on the National Historic and State Historic Registries. The original building is really old. And then it's also, the library is part of that structure as well. So one of the county libraries is in that building. So as far as using the town hall as a community center, we had one resident that literally the day after the design team was there, she connected with the county to start offering exercise classes for seniors. There's already a senior meal program a couple times a week in the town hall. We started some programming for middle school students, which we had to discontinue for lack of chaperones, but that was pretty popular for a couple of years. And then the library has been getting more active in the community, starting a book group and looking at movie nights and things like that. So the town, and I should say that I don't know if some of this stuff would have happened anyway if the design team hadn't come to town, but I think it just got people talking and thinking. And so, you know, some of this stuff may have happened even if the design team hadn't come to town, but I think they do deserve a lot of credit for getting people talking about this stuff. So in 2019 or about there, the town did acquire that property that we're looking at the back of the town hall on the left now. We did acquire the property across the street that's adjacent to the fire station. Haven't figured out what we're going to do with it yet, but at least the town now owns it and controls it. And then this past year, the town actually voted to rebuild, we needed a new fire station. You can see from the before picture that they could barely get the trucks in the door, and they were having trouble buying new trucks because they didn't even make them short enough when they needed new ones to fit in our old fire station. So we built a new fire station on the exact property. There was some discussion about whether it should get moved out of town, but people really wanted it in town because it's got additional meeting rooms and other things that we can use. Again, building on the idea of having the community center really be, you know, the government buildings that are already available to people. And the property that we've bought that we haven't figured out what to do with, where the flagpole is, and you can see the back of that little blue building, that's the space that we may be looking to. Well, if my kids have their way, it's going to be a skate park, but we'll see. And then a big topic of conversation since the design team came in 2015 was what's going to happen to Nelson's, because it's a big property for Bailey's Harbor next to the marina, and everyone was worried when the store closed, because we all knew it was probably going to close because they have a nicer, newer one on the other side of the county. What's going to happen to Nelson's? And at the annual meeting this year, the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of the town buying Nelson's, which I'm really excited about because some of us were talking about that even before the design team came. So the town will be purchasing that at the end of the year. Don't have exact plans about what to do with it yet, but it's likely going to be mostly green space. Todd Johnson from UW Extension from the Community Vitality and Placemaking team hooked us up last year with UW-Madison through the MBA program. Some students studied a couple different properties for their capstone project, and Nelson's was one of the properties they studied to give us some ideas of how we might redevelop that as a community property. One of the other things we asked the design team for help with was when you're coming into our downtown, actually, frankly, this is still what it looks like, but it's a lot of asphalt and a lot of signs, and there's a big guardrail that we all think is ugly, but that the DOT, because this is a state highway, makes us have on that curve. But so we asked for help to, like, how do we kind of spruce up when people get into town that they know they've arrived? And the design team's suggestion was basically like, duh, turn it into a park, because all the locals knew that it was public property, but nobody else did. So that's what we did. And they suggested a couple other parks as well. So we created a park. We named it Lakeshore Park. We've got a little free library. We got some picnic tables and benches donated. My family and a number of other residents got the town to budget money so that we could put in a wildflower garden right where the bluff is. And then we still have volunteers that are keeping up that garden for us. The town also had a road platted that went to the water that wasn't really a road. People just kind of drive down and look at the water, and the design team said that could be a park. And so we named that. We've blocked it off so that it'll kind of return to grass, but still have a little bit of parking. So now there's another little just kind of pocket park on the north end of town with property, again, that the town already owned and locals knew was public, but nobody else really knew that was something they could walk down. And then finally, again, another platted alley that the town has that goes down to the water. Always kind of felt like you were walking into the back door of whatever business was located there, or into, there's a house right there. But so we just named that as a park, and then have these nice benches down there by the water so people can walk down and go look at that. The design team also suggested putting in a community garden. So we've done that between or behind the building, which is one of the oldest buildings in town that houses the Historical Society and the Information Center. So a community garden went in last year, is the first year that they got that set up. And then again, we had a lot that was for sale when the design team came. This business was for sale. It's subsequently been bought and redeveloped as a restaurant. This is where that little Bluff End Park, the last one I just showed you, is located next to that restaurant. So they're pretty happy to have that little park there. The building that was housing Door Shakespeare, a theater company, and another retail were for sale. Those have been redeveloped with a coffee shop that was already in town but needed bigger space. So they bought and moved themselves down the block, and another retail place moved in last year. And then behind the coffee shop this year, those folks decided to take their 3-car garage and turn that into 3 new businesses, 2 retail and then one that's surfboard and skateboard. Because for those of you that don't know, surfing and windsurfing and kiteboarding are big in Bailey's Harbor. And then the brewery that was already in town when the design team came, bought, and I don't have a before picture on this one, bought some kind of decrepit and mostly non-functional retail buildings and moved a couple blocks because they had outgrown their original space within the space of like a year. And then that old brewery has converted to a restaurant. And then this is a before and a before picture. This is right across back again by the marina. This is Cornerstone Pub and Lakeshore Adventures. And the design team envisioned more retail in this space with maybe some housing. And the owners of these two properties have turned in an application to reconfigure, tear out a lot of the asphalt, put in 3 new retail spaces, including the Lakeshore Adventures business, and then affordable workforce housing on the top for up to 25 to 30 summer workers. So that's going to be coming in the next year and a half or so. This is behind Cornerstone Pub and Lakeshore Adventures. This is a parking lot, but and a lot of us want it to be a park, as did the design team. Once that redevelopment happens at Cornerstone Pub and Lakeshore Adventures, it's not going to be very practical as parking anymore because you won't be able to drive through the property to get back out to the highway. So Bailey's Harbor has a lot of festivals, and we envision that this should be something that's doesn't have permanent fixtures, but could be set up with big tents for festivals or things like that, or maybe the farmers market that we have in the spring. And then finally, a couple other suggestions the design team made, a recycling center. So the town already owned an old town dump a couple miles outside of town, and then reset that up with what was originally 24/7 recycling, and then that didn't go so well because people started dumping garbage. So now it's monitored, and you can go 2 days a week and for free drop off your recycling if you're a Bailey's Harbor resident. Then we've got a lot of other stuff going on that I won't get into too much detail, but we've looked at a lot of things related to affordable housing. We have a business advisory team that's retirees that have said, you know, if there's a business that needs advice about something, we'll offer some free consulting within reason. We've got a group that had started trying to map all the trails, and then it kind of died off. But now a couple people have reinvigorated that, and we've actually got a retired person that does web maps and digital tours on phones and things like that. And he's mapping all of our historic sites in town, all of our parks, all of our public water access. And so he's putting together, just because he thinks it's a fun thing to do, some things that the Historical Society and the Visitor Bureau will be able to use. We finished a dog park shortly after the design team came. We've got some groups or some people that are working on trying to achieve dark sky status. And then we've got a group that has formed to work on infusing more art into kind of the downtown area. So I guess, and Todd can attest to the fact that there've been a lot of frustrations over the last 6 years and I am not a patient person. And I think that's one thing that definitely people that are embarking on things like this need to be. It felt like a lot of times we weren't getting places fast enough, but it does feel in the last year or two like we've really got a lot of momentum and a lot of people now talking about all these different things. So anybody that's doing any process like this with the community vitality and placemaking team, or just doing things on their own, obviously you need to have dedicated volunteers. You really need to have supportive elected officials. We had a couple of mishaps in the beginning where maybe we didn't involve them as much as we should have. And they're the ones, obviously, if you're dealing with town properties, that are going to have to be giving you the okay or possibly budgeting to do the things that you might want to do. And again, I think patience has been key. But it really does feel like we've been making a lot of progress now. We're pretty excited and proud about what we've been able to do in the last couple of years. And I'd be happy to take questions now.
Thank you so much, Mariah, and thank you for sharing that project that just seems to spur and spur and spur. So it's wonderful to hear. And I don't know about anybody else, but I think a visit to Door County sounds like a fabulous plan over the summer and fall months. So I'm encouraged to travel. So thank you for all of the beautiful pictures. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we'll also have Mariah chat her email in there as well for follow-up questions. And then Todd did put an article in there, a blog in there, which is great. And a lot of positive.
Yeah. I can't say enough about that design team program. I mean, it's fun because I participated as a resident, but then now I've been part of the design team in other communities across the state, and it's just a great, great program.
So we do have a question. Where does the town get its funds to buy all the land and properties?
So let's see, some of it they've done like kind of the more traditional bonding or whatever else, and I won't even pretend to know all the details about that. The Nelson's property is one of the more expensive properties that the town had looked at buying in a number of years. And our town board chair, once he knew that the Nelson family had agreed on the price that they were willing to sell it to the town for, which is somewhat, but not significantly lower than what they would have listed it for, he went out and fundraised, a team of people, he and 3 or 4 other people went out and raised probably like $500,000 within a month of private philanthropy. And then we're going to be looking probably for that one, since it's waterfront, we're going to be looking at applying for Wisconsin Coastal Management Program grant money, and hopefully for Stewardship Fund grant money from the state as well. But mostly they've just done kind of the traditional, bonding. Bailey's Harbor, we're not even using an iota of the debt capacity that we would theoretically be allowed to use. But that definitely is a concern. And those of you that live in towns know that, a village or a city, they can just decide to buy. I mean, obviously they have to have the money and the mechanisms to be able to pay for it, but they can just buy things. Whereas a town, you have to get the permission of the electorate. So it is always kind of nerve-wracking to have those annual town meetings where the town is looking at buying property. But I'd say we've been pretty successful. Right before the design team, they purchased 40 acres out near our existing rec park. And there are a number of us that want to maybe have like 10 of that be used for housing at some point. But all of that requires a vote. You have to vote to buy it. You have to vote to build it. You have to vote if you're going to sell it. So it's a lot of talking.
Do you have any tips for you? Shared this a little bit. Any tips on that voting piece on how to maybe start those conversations to get support prior to that?
Honestly, I think just talking about it for over and over repeatedly and trying to have as much information as you can. I think the one vote that I can think of that has not gone well or didn't go in the town's favor in the last 10 years was another property across the street from the town hall. And when that got pitched to the electorate, the town had zero idea of what they were going to do with it. Like they just couldn't even answer any basic questions, and it only lost by a few votes. But I think that was a lesson that you just need to be pretty prepared to talk about what they're going to do with it, which actually is, I guess, contradictory to what I said about the Nelson's project and the one next to the fire station, because they don't yet know what they're going to do with those, but they do know that it's going to remain some kind of public property, likely, park-ish, green space-ish.
That's great. And we have time for one final question. Great question here. Do you have a significant volunteer base to help you get these projects developed, or are the city, county staff doing most of the things, such as developing or making parks?
So in the beginning, and I think we were overly ambitious, we formed like 8 groups after the design team was there. So we had a group that was talking about housing and one that was talking about, parks and downtown and whatever else. And I think we really burned ourselves out because a lot of us were in a number of groups and some of those kind of fizzled. We could certainly use more volunteers than we have now, but at least as far as like the maintenance of the parks, that we were lucky because the town already owned those properties. So town crews were already going in and doing like the mowing. And now it's just, there's a little bit of extra work because we need them to bring in like mulch for the gardens each year or that kind of thing. But so we've kind of done a nice partnership of volunteers and town staff as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mariah. We really appreciate you presenting at this summit, as well as our housing summit that you presented on earlier on. So we really appreciate your time and partnership here. So thank you so much. And lastly, to round out this first hour, we have the Grantsburg Revitalization Operation, which is a fellow 2020 TRDI recipient. So this Grantsburg Revitalization Operation is a multifaceted operation focusing on the renewal of Grantsburg and community growth. Presenting today is Nikki Peterson, founder of the Grantsburg Revitalization Operation. So we will turn this over to Nikki.
Hi, everyone. I too will attempt to share my screen successfully.
We can see it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm very excited to talk to you about what we've been doing in Grantsburg, Wisconsin. If you're not familiar with where we are in Northwest. We're basically an hour north of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So all of our news comes from the Twin Cities, which is kind of weird. But we're here and we're thriving, and I'm excited to tell you about some of the things we're doing.
Hey, Nikki, your screen share is on your desktop now.
Oh, is it pretty?
It is. It makes me hungry.
So I do food photography. I just wanted to share that with you all. Let me see what's going on here. Hang on. Sorry about this. Is that better, Todd?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, so Grantsburg Revitalization Operation, which we actually started with the acronym GROW and worked back into what the words were going to mean. So we formed our organization in the spring of 2014. We kicked off the group with a design team visit, which Mariah went into detail about, so I won't go into that detail, but I think we were the UW Extension's guinea pig from moving, kind of replicating a Minnesota design team charrette type of program into the UW system with the extension spearheading it. So we had a community gathering for a weekend where the main goal was to identify a shared community vision. And I just love this graphic that Todd shared with us at the beginning, which was like everyone scrambling around kind of doing your own thing, or an imposed vision where maybe it's your local government or some group that's kind of forcing the direction, or a shared vision where your community comes together and we all talked and highlighted what we felt was important in our community where we wanted to see growth happen. I know Mariah showed some of the screens that they went through, but my favorite part of the process was how questions were asked of the community members, and then everyone got stickers and we put up the answers to the questions all across the gymnasium, and people got to take their stickers and put what was most important to them. From there, then the design team was able to kind of hone in on what was important to create our community vision. So everything we've been working on, we know and feel confident that it's what our community wants. From there, we put together kind of a steering committee, a main committee that included all facets of our community. One that is integral in everything we do is the village board and public works department. And I know Mariah talked about that briefly as well. We also have school administration, hospital administration. We have a state-owned wildlife area here that is of 30,000 acres or something like that. So it's huge. So we have their wildlife representative. Service business, retail business, manufacturing, farming, library, outfitters, because we're along the St. Croix River, county extension, and county administration. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had a voice at the table. From the design team drawings and weekend, we decided to focus on 5 different areas. One is branding. Grantsburg didn't really have a brand. We didn't know what we stood for. So we developed that. Natural resources. Mostly promoting what we already have for natural resources, as well as enhancing and developing new options. Highway 70, we're a main corridor. We're one of the few areas you can cross over from Minnesota into Wisconsin along the St. Croix River. So we have a very busy highway that goes to cabin country in the Northwoods. And then our downtown, like many rural communities, we're set off a few blocks from the main highway. So getting any support in retail business or anything downtown was a struggle. And you see those empty buildings and buildings that just needed an upgrade on the outside. So that was a focus on the downtown. And then housing. I think every community struggles in having enough housing. So that was our 5th. And what we ended up doing was we took our main group of people and everyone was assigned to be on one of these 5. They often were one person was on each one. And then the idea was to get other community members involved on the committees where they were passionate. I feel like no one wants to go to a meeting that they don't really want to be at. So to find the people who are interested in each of the aspects, and we actually have subcommittees of subcommittees of subcommittees. Some are project focused where you have an end date, like we're going to work on this for 1 year or 3 months or 1 weekend, whatever it is. And that's been successful for us. So I'm going to dive quickly into the different committees and show you what we've done. But we had a new logo for Grantsburg, a new tagline, which is "Start Here," with the idea of, again, we are one of the first places you come into Wisconsin. So start your family here, start your business, your vacation, your outdoor adventure. Part of this and the promoting of our current natural resources was to create these trail kiosks. Basically, we have 2 of them located in town where you can drive up or walk up to, and they highlight all of our trails and waterways, campgrounds, public landings, bike routes, snow trails, hiking, all of that good stuff. So there's QR codes, so then you can download the map on your phone, see your public services such as the library and the golf course and various things. Also with the natural resources, a big project, we have 6 miles of very windy riverway between our downtown and the St. Croix River. Many areas of the river were unpassable with fallen down trees, etc. So we have gone down the river several times after storms and get out your chainsaws and clear the riverway. So we had to have landowner buy-in to get in and out of the river on their land and pull the trees aside. So this is a very strenuous job, but we have a great group of volunteers that have been keeping that cleaned up for several years now. Another small project committee is our swimming pool park. We have a community swimming pool with a lot of grass, the kind of the middle picture there, that we decided to kind of create an outdoor recreational area. So we've put in a fitness trail. So it's about a 0.4 mile trail around the park. And then there's 5 different fitness stations along the trail. So you can get a good workout. And we're currently fundraising for a splash pad to connect to our swimming pool because our kiddie pool had to be shut down due to new regulations that we couldn't afford. And splash pads kind of seem to be the new thing. So we were hoping to have that ready for this year, but with COVID, our fundraising kind of took a back seat. So and then phase 3 would be a playground. There is a small playground there, and we would like to make that larger. And we've the bottom picture to the right, we sold bricks as a fundraiser for part of this project. We've also, through Todd seems to always be in our corner, even after the design team weekend. For the last many years, he's been an advocate for Grantsburg. And so he connected us with this program with the UW-Madison Landscape Architecture Program, where the students have to basically adopt a town and for their capstone program. So luckily we had a girl named Sage come to Grantsburg, and she focused on identifying gateways and creating a sense of community, connecting our natural resources to the highway, and developing a downtown streetscape design. And I feel like what we kind of went and ran with on those pieces that she was focusing on was that downtown streetscape. So we talked about signage and streetlights, places to sit along our downtown. With the design team project and with the capstone project, it really gave us the tools we needed to be awarded the community development block grant. So we were very excited to get that. And in the summer of 2019, we redid all of the streets in our downtown, got new street lights, hired a designer to do new banners that went with our theme of Start Here, and kind of outlined all the assets we have, new benches, new trash receptacles, and then stormwater improvements and things that you can't see, but it's made a dramatic difference in our downtown for the beauty piece. So this is a shameless plug of my own, but I know it's important because it's my husband and I opened a brewery in September of 2018. But the reason we did it is, again, you go back to what drives people to downtown, and getting those people off the busy highway to come into your downtown was just something that's very difficult. And he and I purchased this building. It's an old creamery. It's located across the street from our lake that's downtown with beautiful green spaces. So we opened the brewery and just kind of build it and they will come. We were hopeful. We did research, of course, but you know, who doesn't want to go research beer? So we've had a lot of fun renovating this. You can see some pictures here, the before and after of this building and the space. The inside, it was owned by the Lions Club, but it was originally a creamery built in 1919. And I was digging through the design team weekend where people put their stickers over everything. And one of the main things that they wanted was beautification and revitalization in downtown. And I think that our goal with this is that it would get people kind of the momentum going, and that hopefully other businesses would open up and old buildings would be purchased and renovated. And I'm excited to tell you that we've had 11 businesses open since we opened the brewery. We have a pet groomer, we have a vintage occasional store, we have a custom cakes, a beautiful cake decorator, a realtor, a chiropractor came down and then retired, and now our local police citizens auxiliary. We have a hair salon, we have a media network, we have a women's and clothing store, we have a classic car restoration business, Christmas wreaths, and recently in April opened a coffee shop and wine bar. And our downtown is about 3 blocks long. So this was very exciting to see. And all the people out walking and enjoying our downtown it's very cool. So I have a few before and after pictures. The building that sat directly across from our brewery came open for sale 2 years ago in May. And we had no parking and we also had no storage. So we ended up purchasing the building. Then we were probably 2 months later, we were approached by 3 teachers who thought it'd be really cool for downtown to have a women's clothing boutique. And they sold us on it because I ended up going to a clothing boutique and spent way too much money. I'm like, okay, I think this can work. And so we spent the last year, January through May, renovating a part of the building and doing all the painting outside so that they could open their clothing boutique. A few other facade improvements. The upper left picture is our chiropractor, the dog groomer. This building had been shut, I don't know when they were open last, probably 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And then a local bar on the bottom picture, the facade improvements really cleaned things up. We have in the upper is the new occasional vintage store, the Pink Squirrel, that originally was, or not originally, but most recently just kept changing from thrift store to thrift store to thrift store. But the Pink Squirrel makes our downtown once a month. There's nowhere to park. It is amazing what it's done for our town, and it's very exciting. And then the bottom pictures are the coffee shop that opened up, and he took 2 years to renovate that building, but he did an amazing job and did it right. And it's very exciting, the work he's done on that. Also in our downtown, that memory lake that I was talking about across from our brewery is a campground. There's about maybe 30 sites there. So we have a group of people who are passionate about the campground and have approached the village, and they're working on getting a grant and their engineering all done. And the goal of expanding the campground in the next year and a half, but we would be adding another 30 sites along the Wood River. And the Wood River is what I was talking about before, that we've cleaned out so you can kayak it more readily. So hopefully that's on the way to completion. Our housing, we also were awarded a $5,000 grant to have a housing market analysis. Since then, we've had local investors develop 2 sets of duplexes. I could not find a picture. They opened last summer. And unfortunately, there was a fire in them already. So that's the only picture I could find. And then we also just recently, I read in the paper that someone was approved for up to 50 houses on a housing development. I don't remember how many acres of land, but they're planning to have a dozen of those ready for this fall, if they can find lumber and trusses and things like that. Highway 70, we've added some wayfinding. That's about the only thing we've been able to accomplish. Like Mariah said, you get all these committees and it's great, and then the leader moves away or something happens and they kind of fizzle out. So that one's kind of on a hold. And then our fire hydrants, this was an idea from the design team, just kind of get some community spirit. So scavenger hunt around town. We have an amazingly enormous number of fire hydrants. And so teamed up with the school and local artists to do the fire hydrants. And lastly, I just thought I would talk about how we communicate with our community. We have a Facebook group just for businesses. We did join the Connect Communities program with WEDC, and this is where I share all information that they share with me so that everyone can have it in one spot. We also have a Facebook group just to kind of tell the community projects that we're working on. We have a website, and it's been a lot of fun, and can't wait to see what the next 7-8 years hold for us. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Nikki. This is wonderful. And again, it's great to see how, the beginning process of this can spur all of these other developments and improvements and things like that. So definitely thank you so much for sharing these great things that have happened. That's very exciting. I think another trip up to Grantsburg is in my summer plans. So great information. We do have time for a couple questions. So we do have one here. Do you have a village grant program in place for facade improvements? And if so, what does the village offer for incentives?
There is a county facade program. I believe it's at 1% financing. So I believe some of those businesses I was showing them before and after, I know Hummer's Rendezvous, I believe is one of them, have taken advantage of that.
Wonderful, thank you. And if we have time for a couple additional questions, you can definitely put those in the chat. And then Nikki, if you wouldn't mind also chatting your email in the chat, that would be great. And then we'll put these presentations out on our website, so you'll be able to check out the Grow Grantsburg website, as well as the Facebook page and things like that. So you had mentioned when you were talking about kind of the tourism pieces of this, getting some landowner buy-in. So was that purchasing land from landowners, or were those donations to the community?
I guess I don't recall the landowner buy-in.
For the kayaking around the.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So they sent letters to the landowners along the river, just to make sure that if they did have something to pull out of the river, they had permission to put it there for a little bit, or if they needed a place to get in and out of the river, because there aren't landings along that stretch. They had so basically I'm not exactly sure where they got the list of landowners, but I'm sure that's readily available in plat maps and stuff. And everyone, I think, was fine with that.
Wonderful, thank you. And last question here, did you hire a private company to do your branding materials?
I am in marketing, so I've done a lot of it, but we did hire, or I shouldn't even say we hired. I have a very good friend who's a graphic designer, so she was willing to help us with our logo. And then the rest of it's been kind of on our own. And I wanted to mention also, because this is a question from Mariah, but we're 100% volunteer. We have no paid employees, or we don't have a chamber of commerce that has a paid employee or anything. So it's been good, but it's been hard, but it's been good.
That's great to hear. Definitely a strong community base and passion there. So thank you so much for sharing. So again, we really want to thank all of our presenters, Paula, Kelly, Mariah, and Nikki, for their great presentations today, and hopefully giving you some ideas for your own communities for future growth and development. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rebecca. And yeah, what an hour of some great information and success stories. You can see why they were the top rural development initiative winners, and what they've done since their awards is pretty phenomenal. So I know you're looking at the clock and saying, "Gee, it's almost 10 after 1 already." But I can tell you that Representative Dave Armstrong is not going to be able to join us today. Our representatives are really tight with their timeframes down in Madison, as naturally when they're in session and having committee meetings, that's priority one. So Dave won't be joining us today, but we do have Representative Nancy Vandermeer that's going to be joining us a bit later on. But right now, we're just going to take a quick 3-minute break till about 1:12, 1:13, and then we'll be back to start the second hour. And we hope you all come back. Just get up and do some stretching, and we'll be back with more of the program, wrapping up our final hour in just a few minutes. Thanks. To introduce a couple more of our gold sponsors that without their support, we really would have a tough time putting on a summit. And they were nice enough to stay with us for 2020 and 2021. And the Marshfield Clinic Health System has been not only a great gold sponsor, but also one of our valued partners as well of Wisconsin Rural Partners. So right now, I'd like to introduce Jeffrey Tucker, the VP of Business Development and Care Innovation, to greet you for this second hour. Jeff?
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
You're good.
I was absolutely brilliant in that brief blurb. No, I was just saying thank you for the introduction, and that we are truly honored to be a part of Wisconsin Rural Partners and to have been a part of this summit. It's bittersweet to see it come to a close, but I was personally very, very happy to see you move forward with this. Our health system is largely a rural healthcare system with 60 sites throughout rural Wisconsin. We have 9 hospitals, a children's hospital, and as I've mentioned during previous sessions, that we very much see our future tied to the future success of rural Wisconsin. So again, thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of this. We're a proud sponsor, and we're glad to be here. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. And we look forward to doing more things with you throughout, not just this year, but of course next year, because we'll have a big announcement coming up at the end of this hour that I think you'll probably be familiar with the area we're going to be talking about. So thanks again, Jeff. Our next gold sponsor has been a great support of us too, and we're glad to have Kelly back with us from WEC Energy Group. Kelly is a local and governmental affairs leader. Welcome, Kelly.
Good afternoon. I'm going to echo Jeff's words on behalf of Wisconsin Public Service and We Energies. We're just thrilled to be a part of this summit. I want to thank you all very much, from everybody who's attending to all of your wonderful presenters, for putting this out there and doing such a quality program. So thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Thanks, Kelly. And Jeff, you and Kelly do make a great band, so we'll take it on the road here in the future. So thanks a lot. Little inside joke, but it's been great having you be part of this. And thank you both for all your great support, and to all our sponsors and exhibitors for their great help putting this summit on. Right now, we're going to move into our next segment, and I'm going to bring back a familiar face, one of my committee members, who's going to be the moderator for this segment. We did a nice broadband session a couple of weeks ago, and we just had so much information. We had to overflow it again and bring Jaron back again. But Marianne, I'm going to turn it over to you. You've got a lot of good information about broadband coming up.
Well, thank you, Steve. And it's great to be back. Good afternoon, everyone. 2 weeks ago, when we had the broadband topic, there had just been some breaking news regarding additional money being released to the Public Service Commission for broadband expansion. And we are thrilled that Jaron is back today. Jaron is the director of the State Broadband Office, and he's going to give us a little more detail about what this means for rural communities, how communities can get involved, and also some upcoming education sessions and webinars related to this new opportunity. So Jaron, take it away.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm just going to share my screen quickly here. I've got a couple slides prepared. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. So thanks again, Marianne. I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and speak. Like you said, it was very timely last time I was here presenting the rural partners, but got a little bit more information. We released application instructions about this new broadband funding opportunity yesterday. So I've got a little bit more specifics that we can dive into, but I really appreciate the opportunity. So I'll start off with, so as folks may or may not be aware, Governor Evers a couple weeks ago announced a $100 million investment, kind of a first round of federal funding for broadband access. And part of that announcement on May 18th, it said that the PSC, the Wisconsin Broadband Office, would be issuing application materials on June 1st. So of course we did that yesterday. They are available on our webpage. So this funding window and this funding cycle that we're talking about, so they issued the materials yesterday, June 1st, and they will be due on July 27th of 2021. So a little bit tighter window in terms of kind of the window for submitting applications than in the past. But not a ton tighter, just a little bit tighter. The funds from this for this program are coming from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So a little bit different. The source of funds are coming from federal source. And the legislation that allocated those funds to the state in response to the COVID-19 emergency. So Governor Evers determined that $100 million of this funding would be available to make improvements in broadband infrastructure, which is a very exciting good news. So some of the initial guidance that came out of Treasury was that these funds could be used to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And we, shortly thereafter, the U.S. Department of Treasury issued their interim final rule, further expounding upon, the eligibility and kind of where these funds can go to. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit today too. So let's talk about the schedule of events really quick, the timeline. So applications were released yesterday. So July 13th would be the next milestone, 4 p.m. That's the last day for submitting questions and requests for clarification on any of the application materials. July 26th, 4 p.m. again, that's the last day for requesting assistance to upload documents to our WRP system. And then that brings us to July 27th, 4 p.m. That's when applications are due. They need to be uploaded to our WRP system, our electronic records filing system, and all applications will be public. That brings us to the objection and rebuttal period, August 20th, again, 4 p.m. That's the last day for submitting an objection to a grant application. And then August 27th, again, 4 p.m., last day for submitting a response to an objection. So I'm going to do a little bit of level setting here just to kind of give a sense, because people might be familiar with the grant program in the past, but there are some notable key changes this time around. So the interim rule from Treasury does create a different process for evaluating these grant applications than what has been used in the past for broadband expansion, for the broadband expansion grant program, namely in terms of eligibility and priority. But as a general sentiment in this grant round, successful applicants will demonstrate a clear and achievable plan to deliver high-speed, reliable, and affordable broadband to communication services in one or more underserved areas of the state. So I'm going to dive into the eligibility now, and this is a bit different than previous years. So what's not different is that internet service providers, telecommunications utilities, cooperative, local units of government, for-profit, not-for-profit organizations are eligible to apply. Now, where it's different is that the project area, or the areas that are eligible to the state, the project area proposed by the application must consist of unserved and underserved households or businesses. And from that interim final rule that we got from Treasury, those are defined as not currently served by a wireline connection that reliably delivers at least 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload. So that's kind of how you determine eligibility, where in the state can be receiving this funding. Now, an application submitted for that area, those eligible areas must provide that upon completion, the proposed service must meet or exceed symmetrical speeds of 100 megabits per second download and upload. In some cases where that symmetrical 100 by 100 speed is not practicable, the application can propose a service designed to reliably meet or exceed 100 megabits per second download and between 20 and 100 megabits per second upload. But that proposed service does need to be scalable up to a minimum of 100 by 100 download and upload speeds. So here's a snapshot, a screenshot of where in the state is eligible. These are areas unserved by wireline internet access with at least 25 down and 3 megabits per second up. So obviously this isn't super easy. If you wanted to zoom around and pan, you can't do that right now, but I will show later on. We do have web mapping, and then we've also got a PDF that you can download of this very screenshot and zoom in and kind of pan around if you're interested. So just to give you a sense of eligible areas. Next, so this is another kind of, so the eligibility is different from previous grant cycles, and now the priority is a bit different as well, and how these applications are going to be scored. So the interim rule also identifies several priority factors, and following that eligibility for funding, applications will be reviewed by the evaluation committee and ranked on the interim rule priority factor items, in addition to some of the priority items that the commission has previously used. So I'm going to run through those right now. First one being match, that's 10 points. An application will receive credit based on the percentage of matching funds the applicant proposes to invest in its project and the variety of sources of matching funds provided by others. Project technology choice, another 10 points. An application proposing to invest in fiber optic infrastructure will receive credit. Last mile connection, another 10 points. So an application proposing to invest in a physical broadband network that provides last mile connections, again, will receive credit. Applicant type or partnership, 10 points. An application proposing to build a broadband network owned, operated by, or affiliated with local governments, nonprofits, or cooperatives will receive credit. Service affordability, another 10 points. An application that integrates one or more affordability options will receive credit. Continuing on a little bit more here, no existing agreement to build broadband service, another 10 points. An application that demonstrates that there are no existing agreements or plans to build reliable wireline service with minimum speeds of 100 down and 20 megabits per second upload within the project area by December 31st, 2024 will receive credit. Existing broadband service, 10 points again. So an application proposing to serve locations with the least access or the slowest speeds and the highest need will receive credit. Internet access or digital literacy assistance, 5 points. An applicant or an application proposing to provide internet access or digital literacy support to households facing negative economic impact by the COVID-19 crisis will receive credit. Applicant capacity and performance, 15 points here. An applicant that demonstrates the financial, technical, and operational capacity and experience to successfully and completely execute the project in the timeframe will receive credit. And then last but not least, technology, network, and budget, another 10 points. An application that demonstrates a well-planned project with a reasonable budget that shows it will deliver speeds and service proposed to sufficiently robust to meet increasing demands for bandwidth will receive credit as well. So that adds up to 100 points. So those are kind of the priority items that the application submitted will be evaluated on. A couple other kind of loose ended notes that I wanted to highlight. So all this material will kind of be aggregated and provided to the commission for their decision. So that material would include the application submitted, any objections and responses, the evaluation committee's rankings, and then staff will prepare a briefing memorandum. And again, all that will be kind of compiled, delivered to the commission, and then will be used for its decision on awards. The PSC expects to make award decisions in early fall. Another very useful piece of a document that we're hoping to release soon is an FAQ document. Again, stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be releasing that shortly. And then approved projects must be completed by December 31 of 2024. And there's no minimum or maximum amount of funding an applicant may request. And then for those familiar with our grant program, historically funds will be dispersed through a similar reimbursement process, kind of what we've currently used for the broadband expansion grant program. Next, as Marianne referenced, I want to just plug some webinars that we'll be having for those interested or potential applicants. We'll have a grant information overview webinar on Tuesday, June 8th at 2:30. You can register. Again, it's on our webpage, but I'll show you that. We will be recording it as well and posting that too. We will have a how to map your broadband grant project webinar as well. The date and time are still to be determined there. And then finally, we'll have a second kind of grant information and overview webinar, very similar to the first webinar that we're having on June 8th, and the date and time will be coming soon for that too. So we'll make every effort to record those webinars and post those webinars in a timely fashion for those folks that aren't available to tune in live. If there's questions or concerns about the grant application process, or if there's any, any question of if there's a question of error in the application instructions, those can be submitted to PSC State Broadband Office at wisconsin.gov. We just ask that you use the subject line there on the screen, the ARPA broadband grant application question, but we can submit questions or concerns to that email address there on the screen. And if there's time, if there's not, that's totally okay too. I thought maybe it would be useful to just do a quick, 1-minute walkthrough of some of the web materials that we have. And we've actually got a map layer on our broadband map. So I will defer if you guys, if that's interesting, I can certainly do that. But if we want to move it along to questions and answers, that's okay too.
I think there could be value in looking at the map in particular.
Sure.
The broadband grants webpage is rather self-explanatory, but I do know that the maps cause some people to scratch their head.
Sure. Why don't I do that just quickly there in about 30 seconds to a minute. So this is the Wisconsin broadband map. Hopefully folks can still see this. Can folks still see this? I'm hoping so. I switched.
No, we still have the slide up that says
Okay.
web walkthrough.
Okay. Well, that's, I guess, because let's try this. Just a moment. Sorry. It's because I think I just shared my PowerPoint. Can you see it now, hopefully?
Yes. Now we see the main page where you click on Take Me to the Map.
Perfect. So this is the Wisconsin broadband map. So this is what you'll initially see. I spoke about this during my presentation in the past, but if you're interested in the broadband eligibility layer that I spoke to, you can actually turn off this kind of fixed internet speeds layer, the second one down in the layer list, and then turn on the second one from the bottom. That's the ARPA Broadband Access Grant Eligibility Guidance layer. So that'll turn that on, and that'll show a similar snippet to what you saw on my slide, and you can zoom in and pan around and do all that sort of stuff, type in an address and kind of get that kind of information. And again, that's areas that have no wireline internet options with at least 25 megabits per second down and 3 megabits per second up. So.
Hey, Dean. Hello. I am. Yeah. What's up? Hello?
Yes, we can hear someone. We can hear a different voice. So if you have a question. Okay. Well, let's go. Let's go ahead. I do have a couple of questions that have come through. First of all, it has to do with the criteria about no existing agreement to build a broadband service between now and December 31st, 2024. Does that include the RDOF areas?
So that's a good question, and I could speak to this generally. I'm hoping that our FAQ document will provide a little bit of light on this. So that's a tough question to answer because the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund program runs beyond that 2024 timeframe. So I'm hoping we'll provide some more clarity here. My initial thought is that it wouldn't necessarily immediately, rule those areas ineligible because there's really no way to know if those RDOF areas will be built to by that time frame. So at least initially, I would imagine that those areas would still be eligible. But like I said, I'm hoping that more guidance will be further clarified in that FAQ. But the real sticking point there is that 2024 date and the fact that RDOF runs beyond that date. So there's really no way of knowing that those locations would be built out to by that time frame.
Okay, we just had another question come in. Can the grants be used for mapping purposes or are they only for build out?
So that's an interesting question. I think the intent is that those areas, there's a build out component. Now I will say that there are some eligible expenses in terms of, providing some of those planning kind of guides and maybe some of the mapping that might be associated with kind of developing and deploying a broadband grant project. So there are some eligible expenses as long as they're kind of within the right time frame to do some of those kind of planning, potential mapping expenses. So it depends kind of within the context. I would think that, you know, the intent is to build out broadband connections. So if there's a planning or mapping component within that, then I think that depending, like I said, the time frame is appropriate, then I think it would be okay.
Okay, thank you, Jaron. We had another a comment, as well as this is a comment that I have heard also as I visit with people. We know that this is a federal program, so you need to follow the federal guidelines and the federal rules. But I have heard some concern from very rural areas. We're talking about areas with, you know, less than 5 people per square mile. That are really concerned about being able to get wired. And they're relying right now on wireless technology. And, you know, this opportunity excludes fixed wireless. Looking into your crystal ball, as the Joint Finance Committee continues to work on the budget, it appears that there is some strong bipartisan support for continuing to provide broadband expansion funds from state GPR. Do you anticipate, looking into your crystal ball, that the PSC would still look kindly on fixed wireless technology in those very, very remote areas that no wired provider is interested in?
So I can provide some, you know, some of this is fact and some of this is a little bit more of my opinion, of course. So, for this grant round that I just spoke about, there is, of course, priority credit for fiber projects. That's pretty clearly stated in the Treasury guidance. Now, it's just a matter of 10 points. Now, if a fixed wireless technology could meet the, you know, the speed thresholds required that come along with the Treasury guidance, then you could deploy a fixed wireless technology service and apply for these funds. It's not, of course, there's the priority credit for funding or for, excuse me, for fiber, but it's just, you know, it's just kind of one of those priority factors or items. So it's not necessarily a requirement that the project application be fiber. Of course, there's a preference, but it's not a requirement. So in terms of kind of the second half of your question, and this is a bit more of my opinion, I think, you know, PSC is very well aware of the fact that there are, you know, challenging to serve areas of the state where wired solutions may not make sense, or, you know, they may require a very high degree of state assistance to meet those locations. You know, those matching fund percentages might decrease a little bit for those, you know, particularly difficult areas of the state, whether it be topography, population density. So I think that, you know, fixed wireless there's probably some balance of, you know, hybrid of deploying wired technology and fixed wireless technology. So I don't think, you know, again, I wouldn't think that would be moving entirely to a fiber only solution. But, you know, obviously the federal guidance is pretty clear in their preference for fiber, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a requirement. So hopefully that answers the question, but I'm happy to provide some more clarity if needed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions that people would like to add to the chat before we end this segment? I don't see any. So thank you, Jaron, for joining us again. Very, very good, up-to-date information. And I'm sure a lot of people will be looking forward to that webinar coming up on the 8th. And we'll put something on the Wisconsin Rural Partners website and Facebook page also, reminding people about it. So thank you again.
I appreciate the opportunity. And about the webinar, I do believe we have a capped attendance. So I would just encourage folks to register when they're available. And if if it fills up, then there's a second webinar or we'll have it recorded. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Jaron. And yeah, we'll have information. And I will not be surprised if we don't have some more follow-up sessions with Jaron and PSC about broadband as we continue to try to expand our services throughout rural Wisconsin. A very, very important topic, and that's why we wanted to spend some time with it. It leads us into our next speaker, and I've known her for a long, long time. She has been a representative for the 70th District since 2014, and has done just a tremendous job representing not only her district, but the state of Wisconsin. She serves as the chairperson of the Assembly Committee on Rural Development, a position she's held since the 2016 legislative session. She serves as the vice chairperson of the Assembly Committee on Veterans and Military Affairs, members on a lot of Assembly committees, including Agriculture, Consumer Protection, Health, Labor, Integrated Employment, Mental Health, and Tourism. And she was appointed to serve as the bipartisan Speakers Task Force on Suicide Prevention. She's been a very successful business owner in the past, and she lives with her husband, Dave, on his family heritage farm just outside of Toma. And I know her schedule is very, very tight because she's sitting in Madison right now, but I'm glad she's spending some time with us. So it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Nancy Vanderveer. Nancy?
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate the introduction. That was quite comprehensive. I appreciate that. And, you know, really a lot of the things that you spoke about really encompass the work that I am really honored to be a part of. I want to, you know, after that great introduction, we're here, of course, talking about rural development, rural access to health, the Rural Wisconsin Initiative, et cetera. So I wanted to just take a moment to tell you about what my legislative district is. I represent the 70th District, and it is part of Northern Monroe County, corner of Jackson County, large part of Wood County, and part of Portage County as well. And when I say rural, especially when I speak to groups who are not as familiar with our rural areas, as of course all of you are, you know, I describe my two largest cities as Toma and Sparta. That's about 9,000 population each. And then of course, my next two largest cities are Nakusa at about 2,500 and Pittsville, the exact center of the state. And we have approximately 800 there as well. Up near Stevens Point, we have the town of Hull, which is, hi, Marianne, hi, Pittsville. We also have the town of Hull up near Stevens Point, which is a municipality, and that's got about 5,400 individuals. So the rest of the 57,000 people that I get the privilege to serve as their legislator live in those rural areas. So it brings quite a opportunity for us to introduce legislation, get it passed into law that makes their lives better as rural residents. So the first thing I want to describe to you today, I don't have any slides, but I am here in person in the state capitol. If I could, I'd take my laptop around and take you on a tour maybe sometime. But at any rate, I do want to remind everyone the capitol is open again. If you're traveling around this summer, I understand tours will be available. You can certainly check in with your legislator and see if that might be something you would like to bring your family to. And by the way, our State House is one of the most beautiful in the entire country. So I always encourage people to come down for a visit. It's quite magnificent. The Rural Wisconsin Initiative is something that I wanted to preface some of my other remarks about. The Rural Wisconsin Initiative is really a policy idea that Representative Ed Brooks started. And Representative Brooks is no longer with us. He passed away several years ago, and he represented the 50th Assembly District, which is kind of centers around the Reedsburg area. And Ed was always so proud of the district. He said he represented the best district in the state. And I think a lot of us who do this type of work would say that about our districts as well. He always qualified it by saying he was proud to be an Aggie. So he paraphrased that, of course, representing agriculture in his comments. And so, of course, near and dear to his heart, he thought it was important to start the Rural Wisconsin Initiative. And that was back in 2015. So there are 4 primary areas of policy that we focus on. There's about 25 of us who are rural legislators who are a part of this. We have, of course, 99 members in our assembly. So it's a significant portion of those who serve in the assembly. The policy areas that we try to address and work toward improving is, of course, workforce, technology like broadband, K-12 in our rural areas, and of course, healthcare. So because of our limit on time, I wanted to focus on some of the efforts that are rather unique to creating more access to rural healthcare for our citizens that we represent. As I said, I was elected back in 2014. Rural Wisconsin Initiative was brand new then. So it gave me an opportunity of really taking a look at what we could do to one of the areas, bring healthcare to where our citizens are. So where our rural citizens are. So as you well know, it's so important to have that access to healthcare in our rural areas because Wisconsin is ranked as one of the top healthcare providers nationwide. And that's why we want to bring that fantastic opportunity for access to that healthcare to our citizens in those rural areas. And the legislation that I'm going to talk about is really focusing on that priority to access to healthcare. And the reason why we focus on that is because having that access creates the best outcome. And that's, of course, the focus is on our constituents, our citizens, for those with significant healthcare challenges, that they do have the best outcomes available. You know, when I started working on some of the policy work that I'm going to talk about here briefly, there were some other things to note. Of course, priority, as I said, to best outcomes. That was what we focused on. But you know, it was also very important to our economic development in our rural areas, attracting significant employers too, because access to healthcare, good healthcare, great healthcare organizations is really one of the cornerstones in a community to attracting that economic development and expansion. Also, workforce. People want to move to communities where they have access to that great care as well. So some of the first bill that I want to talk about, and I've gone on to do a number that are very similar to this, are licensure bills. And these are compact bills. A lot of us are not familiar with those. And that's why I thought I want to pull those out and really talk about those today and how that can impact our state, especially the rural areas. So back in 2015, I was brand new as a legislator, but I want to just highlight the point too. I had the opportunity to serve on my local health or hospital board for 6 years. And that was just an invaluable opportunity for me as I later became a legislator to be able to understand part of what takes place and how it is enacted in our communities. So what we did, we developed an interstate medical licensure compact. And usually when I talk to groups, that it sounds like a rather large topic, probably too big for this late in the day after you have all been so patient throughout the day listening to these great topics. But what it did, we were challenged here in Wisconsin with transferring physician licenses from other states. Sometimes it would take months because what we needed to do was to collect those credentials where they had practiced before, put it in an application, and then it had to move on through the process of transferring. So what we did, we wanted to be one of the first states as part of the compact. We needed 17 states to activate the compact, and the compact would create a clearinghouse for these credentials. There are also compacts in other professional areas as well, not only just for physicians. However, the way that they may serve those in their compact or professions may differ from profession to profession. So what we did, we passed a bill here in the state legislature allowing Wisconsin to become part of that interstate medical licensure compact. And it was a brand new idea. We had a lot of very in-depth discussions about it. We needed 17 states, as I said, to activate that compact. And we were one of the first states, of course, to be involved in the compact. The bill passed, and we wanted to make sure that Wisconsin had a seat at the table designing the compact for those physicians that we would serve. It's voluntary, so not all physicians have to go through a compact process, but what we found out, it would reduce that transfer of license time, as I said, from what could be weeks or maybe a couple months, or down to maybe several weeks. So that was great for the healthcare institutions who had brought these physicians on as well. It was important, of course, for our border states, maybe physicians that commute from state to state. Most importantly, as we are aware of now, after going through the pandemic, is of course telemedicine. And so that also brings into focus some of the other areas that we work on with the Wisconsin initiative, which is of course broadband development. It's important also for attracting these professionals into our communities as they begin to serve our community. It gives them a quicker assurance, to become part of the community, not only serving patients, but of course, getting into the community and being part of the fabric where they will serve. So what we did, it was the very first one. It was a brand new piece of policy and legislation here in Wisconsin. We had a sunset clause on it. And so some of our legislators said, we should really review this, see how it works. And after 2 years, so Wisconsin transferred the very first license, and it worked very well. It was successful to the point after 2 years, we had created that opportunity of transfer for 400 physicians into the state of Wisconsin. Last year, or I should say in last session, in 2019, we removed the sunset clause. So, the legislature, they were very assured that this was quite an advantage, especially to our rural and underserved areas, seeing the positives it had for telemedicine. And I want to just give you an example. This was one of the most compelling testimonies that we had back in 2015, and talking about why it's important for rural healthcare to have these types of compacts. One of our physicians from a smaller healthcare institution, he came and talked about giving us an example of what it might be like for perhaps a patient presenting stroke symptoms coming to their local hospital. And it may be a time when there is not access to a specialist, but being able to access through the compact and that efficiency of licensing, having access to, say, a thrombolytic specialist, being able to access that type of individual through telemedicine and getting that right protocol early on in those stroke symptoms definitely would allow for the very best outcome for the patient. So that has really stayed with me, and how we can truly make lives better for our for those rural Wisconsinites that we serve. After I did the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact, I went on to do a nurse licensure compact. This is a little bit different. In this compact, it allows nurses to be licensed not only here in Wisconsin, but in the 28 other compact states that Wisconsin would be a member of. And they would get that immediately with their Wisconsin nursing license. And I can recall at the public hearing for testimony on the Nurse Compact, hearing that how beneficial this will be in times of national emergency. And that was 2017, we did that particular bill. So that was very helpful, of course, you know, during the pandemic, having nurses be able to move, you know, from state to state. Once again, this is helpful for our border regions around our state. And of course, this is a workforce development tool as well. We have 112,000 nurses in Wisconsin, by the way, and they were very active in asking for this type of compact. It also adds value to their education, being able to use it in various different settings. So I wanted to, of course, mention that as well. We also went on to do some work, of course, for occupational therapy licensure. We're doing one right now on that. That's a project we're currently working on, and that will be policy very similar to the enhanced nurse licensure. Earlier this year, we also did a bill for the regulation of our physician assistants. There was a regulation where there had to be 4 physician assistants to 1 physician. We changed that. It's very helpful in rural areas, for example, where a lot of the healthcare is delivered by physician assistants. We also this year passed a bill that allows for temporary licensure for 30 days. And that would be for about 16 different healthcare professions. When those individuals come to Wisconsin, they can immediately have that licensure for 30 days. So I wanted to just mention a little bit of that. That's one of the, I think, some of the most helpful things that we have done to create access for all Wisconsinites. And so I just want to leave you with that. And if there's any questions at this time, Steve, I can turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nancy. And yeah, well, right now there aren't any questions that I see on the screen yet in the chat room, but we will definitely get your contact information on the site too for the summit, where people can contact you and link up to some of the programs that you've initiated. So I know you're busy because you've got a lot of things going on down at the Capitol right now, and wish Dave best too from us, so he couldn't be with us today. But keep up the great work that you're doing down in Madison and throughout the state of Wisconsin for all of us.
Well, thanks for having me. And I hope I offered some unique policy information for all of you.
Yeah, and it's all good because healthcare, as you said, is a very important part of the rural quality of life, and we definitely want to see some good positive things coming to make everyone's lives that much better around the state. So thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks to all of you.
Thanks. We're going to be moving on. I know we'll be running a little over, but we've got one more presentation that we want to have, and you know, I want to introduce Marcy. She's from Lafarge. If you probably know anything about the Kickapoo Reserve and that project in itself, she could probably tell you all the stories, good and bad, about that. But very happy for Marcy that she's now the new director of the Office of Rural Prosperity. Wisconsin Rural Partners was really excited to see the governor set up the Blue Ribbon Commission on Rural Prosperity. It was kind of a shame that a lot of the commission members who were going to do their meetings all around the state couldn't because of COVID, but they put together a great report anyway. And I wanted to get Marcy on so she could talk about, you know, now her new position with Rural Prosperity, and also the direction that we're going now that we're getting out of this COVID situation. So Marcy, you could take over the screen. I know you got a short presentation you'd like to give. Great to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Great to be here. And this has been an awesome session. Like you said, I'm new, 4 weeks on the job. And so I'm just being a sponge on all of these great stories. So really appreciate it. Let's see where. I'll try and make up some time, that's for sure. And this way, nobody can stump me with questions, right? Because I'm new and we need to get off of back on time. So yeah, the Office of Rural Prosperity set within Wisconsin Economic Development Corp. And definitions, you guys know what rural is. Don't need to go through that. I won't read these verbatim, but just a reminder of what the Blue Ribbon Commission came up with. Many of the things that you folks have been working on for ages. Like Steve said, I come to you from the Kickapoo Valley and worked with rural communities, still live and breathe it. So many of these things sound very familiar to me. For the Office of Rural Prosperity, we'll start working, or there's been a lot of work done already, and you've heard about it, and we'll continue to work on a number of these priorities throughout the coming years. The mission, similar, foster the vibrant and prosperous communities across Wisconsin. Also hope to try and bring things together so nobody has to reinvent the wheel. We can share good programs, share good stories like you folks have been doing all day today. I just want to introduce you to the office that I'm working with now. Many of you have already met Danielle Jones or Keitra Olson. And so it's great to inherit a team that already knows what's going on. Lou Blank is our intern. He'll be working on the climate change map. And we received an EDA grant that will add 2 project positions for rebuilding economic vibrancy after a major pandemic. So it'll go by revamp. One of the things I've learned is that WEDC has more acronyms than other organizations I'm used to. So I'm still working on my cheat sheet on that. But the pilots in development, broadband, childcare, housing, renewable energy, youth leadership, and again, that climate equity map were all identified in the Blue Ribbon Commission report. And if you have additional pilot projects, Danielle Jones is the person to bounce your ideas off of and work with on those. We've done forest products industry diversification listening sessions and working with the Governor's Council on Forestry and Wisconsin DNR on diversifying and trying to come up with ideas on those. Perhaps you participated in those listening sessions as well. Oops, did I go the wrong way? Yep. And then, like I said, trying to become a resource hub for connecting all of the dots, so to speak, and working with partners to make sure that the information gets out. And then providing as much information as we can to the communities or the businesses as needed. And then have a multi-pronged communication tool as we move forward. Again, WEDC just has a wealth of talented folks working on everything from statistics and information sharing, and obviously the projects and programs that they've been able to do. So that's just a little bit about us, but feel free to contact me. I really look forward to getting out and meeting folks and getting to see and learn more about what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. I got a question for you since you're new. What's something that's low-hanging fruit that you're really wanting to make your own personal priority to see come together, you know, say within this year or within a year? Is there anything?
Oh boy, just one.
Well, you could name more.
I think these kind of connections with organizations that exist, and we're already hearing stories from the pandemic about, you know, how people pulled together a farmer's market in a unique way, and we could share that information statewide. Things that make rural communities more efficient. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, and they make good use of their volunteers or workers that usually are the ones that are spread pretty thin. If we can help them with that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and we do have the report as a link on our website too.
Thank
So
you.
if people want to follow up on that, and of course any other information that you have, we can put on the Road to Rural Recovery or on our social media platforms as well. So congratulations again on the new position. I know you're going to do great, and we look forward to working with you and the whole Rural Prosperity Group a lot in the future.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Okay, well, thanks a lot for everybody for sharing or staying. I'm going to quickly put the screen up so we can wrap things up here. I do want to remind you that we have our survey that we're going to be sending out. You'll probably see it here in the next hour that we'd like you to fill out for session number 5. This will give us an idea of what you thought of value. If there's questions that you have that you'd like us to ask the presenters, there'll be room for that in the survey as well. It's only 9 questions, takes very little time, so please help us out by filling that out and getting that back to us. There'll be a more extensive survey that'll be coming out next week on the overall 5-week summit as a whole. So look for that as well, because we really want your input, because you've been such a great supporter of ours, whether you're a sponsor or an attendee, and your feedback will help us a lot for our future efforts and some of the programs that we want to start with. I want to thank all our sponsors, the gold sponsors, including Marshfield Clinic Health System, Mid-State Technical College, Wisconsin SMP, WEC Energy Group. Our silver sponsors include League of Wisconsin Municipalities, CRA Network Wisconsin, and Southwest ITBEC. Bronze sponsors, GWB Professional Services, WCCU Credit Union, the Association of Wisconsin Regional Planning Commissions, and the All of Us Research Program, which is a branch of Marshfield Clinic. Also, our Get Connected group. These are the ones that would normally have booths at our summit, but we're unable to do that. But they do have their logos and links to their website for services and product lines that they offer. Wisconsin Concrete Pipe Association, Serve Wisconsin, Alliant Energy, Renew Wisconsin, National Farm Medicine Center, Arts Wisconsin, UW Extension, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Save Your Town. And to remind you too that become a valued member or a partner of Wisconsin Rural Partners. It's in the chat room for links to our partnership page and to give you more information about that. We also want to recognize the 2 lucky winners that are going to each win a book, an autograph book from Daniel Smith. His brand new book called Ancestral will be coming out here this month, and he's been nice enough to give 2 of them away. So we're going to announce our 2 winners. Our first winner is Megan McBride from the city of Ashland. Congratulations, Megan. And our second winner of a book is Tamaya from Juneau County Economic Development Corporation. We're going to get your contact information off to Daniel, and he'll get your books to you as soon as he can. Congratulations to Megan and Tamaya, and also big thanks to Dan Smith at the Cooperative Network, and good luck on the book Ancestral that's coming out this month. I want to remind you too about a special bonus session coming up. If you were a 2-day session or summit registrant for 2020, so you bought both days, not just one, if you're a sponsor or an exhibitor, we're going to be offering a special bonus session coming up on July 8th with none other than Deb Brown with Save Your Town. We're going to send out a kind of a questionnaire to find out some of the topics you'd like to talk about, because it's basically going to be a Q&A bonus session, but look for details on that coming as our way of saying thank you to our attendees that signed up for the 2 days, and then also for the exhibitors and the sponsors as well. Down the road, here's are some of the things that we're looking at. The small community forums are in discussion right now. You'll see more details about that. Those are set up in each of the 4 quadrants of the state, and now that we're opening up their state again, we'll have more details on how those are going to be set up, so look for that information. Also, we're going to continue our Road to Rural Recovery work, updating you on all the great resources and programs that you can have that's in our Road to Recovery, not only Facebook page, but also on our website. We're going to expand our networking with state agencies and legislators with rural-based programs and assistance. This was just one of our starts with these sessions, but we're going to do a lot more of that in the future. So look for more information about that coming. And potential programming. And these are based on some of the suggestions we've already received from some of you attendees about a lunch and learn series, doing a 1-hour just, hey, let's talk about the issues, anything bothering anybody, and you can do it over a lunch hour. We're definitely going to be looking at that. Somebody brought up about a rural showcase fall series, that we get our rural departments from Department of Administration, Department of Transportation, Department of Natural Resources, Rural Prosperity, WDC, you name it. We put it all together and do some kind of a rural showcase in the fall. That'll be discussed. Also, rural focused podcasts. People thought maybe we should try to create that, and we're definitely going to look at if that's possible or not. And then the potential Fall Rural Summit has been in discussion, and I know our board's going to be talking about that in the near future. And the big news is that we've scheduled our dates for our 2022 Rural Summit that we hope to do in person. It'll probably be a combination in person and also virtual, but the dates that we've set are April 26th and 27th of 2022, and it'll be held at the beautiful Hotel Marshfield. We had hoped to be in Marshfield 2 years ago, so we're going to be there hopefully in 2022, and we hope that all of you can join us as well for that, and look for details as we get closer in the summer or in the fall as far as programming and sponsorship opportunities as well. But on behalf of the Wisconsin Rural Partners Board of Directors, our committee, and everybody involved, thank you so much to the presenters and the speakers. You've given up a lot of your valuable time, and you've shown us some unbelievable assets that you've put together that we can use throughout the state of Wisconsin. We can't thank you enough for that. Again, thank you, our sponsors, and thank you, attendees. We had over 200 attendees over this 5-week Rural Summit, and even though it was virtual, we gave you a lot of information, and hopefully this is just the start of us networking with you together for many more times in the future. Thank you all for attending and supporting our rural efforts, and we look forward to spending more time with you real soon. Take care.